Hello and welcome everybody to TolaData's 10th installment of the Feature Focus. My name is Sive and I'm a Customer Success Executive here at TolaData, and I'll be your TolaData expert for today. Now, in today's session, we're going to be looking at how do you add data to indicators from a data table or a TolaData that is currently on your system. Now, I think this topic is super useful for everyone who wants to know how best to pull this data from their data sets in a more quick, easy, and transparent way. So if you're interested, please stay tuned, and I'll be showing you how to do that in this session today. So as always, I'd recommend that you, if you want to follow along, that you open up a separate tab and open up your TolaData account. And so when I go through the demo portion, you can follow along and learn a bit more about how to use this feature. So if you have any questions that come up during this session, feel free to note them down, because we will have a segment at the end where you can ask your questions via Mentimeter, and I'd be happy to answer them. And also, as normal, we're going to follow the regular agenda, where we're going to start off with a small presentation, and this will show you how the tool works in general. We'll then go into the demo portion, and as I said, we'll have some questions Q&A at the end if you have any. So without further ado, I'm actually going to get started because we have a lot to cover today, so I'm going to jump right in. So as many of you know, the TolaData Feature Focus is a succession of short live streams that we've put together, so you can get a real good sense of all of our features by having a deep dive provided by us. And this is to allow you to be able to ask questions in a casual way, and to also learn how to become a TolaData expert for free. Our next feature-focused episode is coming in a few weeks' time, and this will show you how you can aggregate your impact. So this will involve using aggregate indicators to be able to pull from all of your various programs to create some really amazing results to see how your total impact is aggregated upwards. And this will be taking place on the 16th of August, and we might even fit in another feature-focused episode specifying a new feature that we've just released, so stay tuned. So what does this feature do in a nutshell? So this pulling data from a data set essentially allows you to pull data from uploaded data sets. Now, this can be from the uploaded data sets from third-party tools like Kobo, O&M, or this could be ones from Tola, or ones that you upload from file or Excel or CSV and Excel. And essentially the system allows you to perform calculations, various calculations, and to apply conditions and even break the data down into disaggregated results. So this will allow you to report these within your indicators. So what part of the TolaData application does this feature sit in? Now, if you're currently on your TolaData account, you can see this if you'd like. So this, as you can see, there are a few green boxes highlighted in the center, and this is located under the indicators. So if you're on your account and if you head over to the indicator section on your navigation panel, if you then head towards an indicator that you have, any indicator, a regular indicator rather, and this can be numeric or percentage. If you then look from within your indicator and look for the collected data tab, this should be sort of the third tab that appears once you click into the indicator. You'll be asked to add data, and if you select that green button, you'll see that there's an option to pull from a data table, and this should be next to manually input data. And that's essentially where it sits within the overall framework of the TolaData platform. And this is located within each individual indicator that is regular and also has a numeric or percentage format. So why was this feature created? Now, I have 5 here. This is not an exhaustive list, and they're in no particular order. But let's start off with the first one here. We wanted to make it easier for you to apply calculations to your data sets. You do not need to be an Excel wizard. You do not need to code anything, add any formulas in order to get your desired results. All you need to do is simply use a drop-down menu and select which column you want to use, and you've got your results from your data sets. And this is to allow you to save time and to make it easier, which feeds into the next point that we have here. because we also, on top of that, have additional features that make it easier for you to pull these results. So example, for our condition feature, we have some pre-fill options, which provide suggestions with how to fill in the conditions. And on top of that, we have for our disaggregations, an auto pull feature. And what this is when you upload a data set, the system will be able to interpret the values that you have and to guess which values are from which disaggregation. And I'll show you that very soon on how that works. The third reason is to simplify your M&E flow. Now, instead of you having to, transfer data from a page or to transfer it from an Excel sheet onto the system, we wanted to integrate it really into the M&E flow that you currently have. So you can continue using your current processes, you can use your data collection tools, fill in your Excel files, and simply then upload them onto the platform and then feed them immediately into your indicator so that there's no break. The fourth reason, also related, is because that you don't have this break in your flow and you have to then, maybe separately input the data. Because it's integrated, there's less likelihood that there's going to be human error. And this really counts over the long term and it reduces the accumulated errors that can happen. So this is a huge benefit when you don't have to, break up this flow that you have. And then finally, we have to introduce more transparency in reporting. Because you have an immediate link to the data set that you're using, if evaluators want to come in and check on the work or the data item that you just inputted, they can easily look for the evidence that you've added or used, to pull from. And this ensures that there's transparency from the beginning to end. So what are we covering today? Now, I'm first going to go through a small presentation to provide you with an overview of the tools you can use to pull the data. And then after that, I'll be providing a live demo on how to pull data from a data set using these various tools. So let's start off now with the presentation. I'm going to start off with, again, highlighting where you can access this pull from data set feature. So as I mentioned, if you're currently on the website, if you want to look over now to the navigation panel on the left-hand side, you should see the indicator section there. And on this page, or on this slide rather, it's highlighted in green with the number 1 next to it. So if you select that, you'll be redirected toward an indicator list. And if you have a look there on the list to an indicator you might want to add data to, you can select that as the second step. The third step will involve selecting the third tab. So that is called the Collected Data tab. And then the fourth step is you can select the Add New Collected Data button. So it's this green button, as you can see. And once that's been selected, you should see 2 options for inputting data, namely that of manual entry and pull from data table. Select Pull from Data Table. Now you might notice that I have linked the steps 2 and 3 to this shortcut. And that's just to say, if you want to skip over the second and third steps, what you can do instead is if you head toward the indicator section again, see the list of your indicators. And if you have an indicator you wish to add data to, if you actually draw your attention towards the right-hand side of the screen, you should see a collected data shortcut that I have here, the symbol that you can see like a stack of coins, and that will immediately actually bring you to the collected data section. So this is kind of a nice Tola tip. Now, once you select Pull from Data Table, you'll notice that there is new cells that emerge down below. And that is made up of this row and also the evidence section, as well as a note section and disaggregations and conditions. The first row that you see here is generally trying to note down the most important bits about this collected data item, such as the result when it was collected and some information on the site and identifier. The first cell of this row, you'll notice, is grayed out, and that's because you're not going to be inputting the data into it directly. What's going to happen is you're going to use the tool to generate the result, and it will automatically then appear within the collected value cell. The second cell that you see here is date collected, and this is going to allow the system to know when this data was collected, and also for it to produce some nice graphs and results. So to the right date to put in here is the last date of your data collection period. So if you're doing this on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis, you'll put the last date of that day range essentially. Then the third cell that we have here is an identifier, and this is very useful if you're inputting a lot of different collected data items and you want to be able to distinguish one from the other because maybe you have a lot. Oftentimes people will put in things like, the month in which it was taken, but if you want to be even more specific, you could maybe even write down the person who collected it, or another distinguishing feature that has happened during this data collection, like the event that it was taken at. So this again will just help you source information a lot quicker. Then finally we have site, and this allows you to tag a site that is involved with your program or your project. And if you click on that column and notice that there is no options appearing, fear not. This is probably due because you haven't added a site just yet, but this can be added under the details section. And you should see within the details section, there's like a sites tab. And there you can either link a previously created site or add a new site. And then you'll be able to tag those sites to this collected data item. Then below, under the evidence section, you'll have the space here to select which data set you're going to be pulling from, the data column as well that you're going to be pulling the data from, and also the calculation formula that you're going to be applying. And then below, you'll notice that I've added that you can add conditions and disaggregations. I'll be kind of going into more detail on those features. But to start off with, I will just let you know what types of calculation formulas you can actually use. And in fact, depending on the format of your indicator, you'll have two different options. So as you can see here, we have the main formats are numeric and percentage. And if we start off with numeric here, you'll see that we have 4 different options. This includes row count, sum, average, and median. And essentially, row counts are really useful to count the rows, count entities, to be able to count the number of things. And you'll notice that I've added a line towards unique values only. So if you have an event, for example, that you're counting numbers of events, and let's say you've had to include that event multiple times, if you want to kind of simply count the number of events, you can select unique values only, and that will ensure that there's no double counting of rows if they have the same wording, one after the other, essentially. Then you have sum as well, which will help you add values together, average and median. The average and median is also shared by the percentage format indicators, so they can be used as well. But what is different for percentage indicators is that you can use a ratio formula, and this will allow you to find the percentage frequency of a value in contrast to another. And I have an example that I'll show you very soon in the demo portion of how that would work. So now that we've done that, we're going to be looking at one of the tools that we can use, and that is the condition feature. So the condition feature on the TolaData platform allows you to filter your results by your desired criteria. So I provided an example here. So let's say we have a data set that we've used that has been kind of the product of a data collection in which we're trying to note down the participants who attended a specific workshop. So perhaps on top of maybe knowing how many attended the workshop, we also want to know some more information and maybe even just specify how many women, let's say, attended the specific workshop. You would use a condition in that sense to help filter this information. So how you can add a condition is quite simple and straightforward. What you need to do is simply select that first button, add condition, you can see on the left. You will then apply a condition or an operator, and there's a few different values here. Say, for example, if I was applying the gender value, or if I wanted to put an operator to help me find that value, I would select value equal to, and then I would say female, and that would help me filter that result. And then finally, you can also add further specifications. So you have additional logical operators, which allows you to build on the result you want. So you can specify results, broaden the scope of, or make sure not to include results of another criteria. So just to kind of give you a step-by-step on how that would work or how that looks, once you select, pardon me, add condition, you'll see 3 columns that appear. And those are the columns that you see in front of you, namely condition column, the operator, and the condition value. The first column is essentially the column from which you'll be applying the operator. So in the instance of if we wanted to filter by gender, you would select the gender column from your data set. Then we have the operator here, and below, if we want our value to equal a certain results, in this case we want it to equal female, we would say value equal to, and then in the condition value, we would input female, because that is kind of what we want the operator to work with or to find. You might see that there's a lot of different operators. These can be, or these are used rather in more numerical values. So say, for example, if you wanted to see the age ranges of certain people, you would, use the less than, greater than operators to help generate that result, essentially. And then finally, we have the logical operators that you can use to kind of build on or filter more or even exclude results. So if you can see here, when you add a new condition, you'll be provided with this drop down if you want to add an additional one, and it'll ask you whether you want to have an and or not. The and operator will allow you to filter your result even more. So say, for example, in our participant data, we want to know specifically how many were women and also how many were women over 30. That's a case in which you'd use and, because you want to filter down even more. The next one is the or condition, or the or operator, and this will allow you to actually broaden the scope of your result. So say, for example, you say, I want to know not only the number of women, but maybe I want to know also the number of non-binary individuals. So in that case, you'd use or, so you can see the total number of all of the women, maybe all the non-binary participants. And then in the cases that you might want to use not, this could be, for example, if you want to say, I specifically want to see the number of women, and then I do not want to see the number of women under the age of 25. That would be the case in which you'd use not. Now we're on the disaggregation feature. And this feature allows you to break down the results of your data into its constituent parts. So using the example from before, if you have the participant details of specific workshops noted down, you might use a disaggregation feature to see, well, how many men, women, and non-binary people attended the specific event, so that you can kind of track their numbers over time and maybe how they differ. So how you can add this is very simply by selecting the Add New Disaggregation Data. And then you will also select whether this disaggregation information is included within one individual column, or if you can get it from various different columns. So once you select that, you'll be provided with a little tool on how to extract the information. So in this instance, I've selected all data in one column. And then what you'll do as a next step is you're going to make sure that the disaggregation type corresponds with the disaggregation column that you want to pull from. So once you've aligned those, below you'll see that the system might auto-pull it. So if your disaggregation values on the system correspond with those from your data set, the system will guess that there's a link between them and auto-pull them. So you don't need to do this manually. And this is kind of the element, saving time element of the platform, which is very useful. However, if you notice that there is a mistake, or maybe the system auto-pulled incorrectly, you can always change that as well, although that very rarely happens. And you can just use the drop-down to select the correct value. And then once you've clicked save and saved those values, and note you can actually add as many conditions and disaggregations as you'd like. Once you've saved your disaggregations, you can check on how they've updated within the results summary section of your indicator. And you can find this under the 4th tab. And under that, you'll find it under disaggregation results. And then below, you'll get that breakdown of all of the different results. Pardon me. And if you notice that there's any unclassified information, you can then go back to the collected data item and correct that. So this is very helpful for ensuring data quality. And if you've been adding disaggregation data over time, you can also check out the disaggregated time-based results. That's just next to disaggregation results, and that is a very powerful way of understanding, and maybe even different people groups have been affected by certain policies over time. So I'd highly recommend you use that feature. So that was a general breakdown of all the tools that you can use to pull from your data sets. It is now time to show you Tola data and the demo that we have prepared. So I'm going to share my screen with you now. And I'll start off on the data table section. So right now you should see updated meeting log here. And I found myself now here in the data table section. And this is where we've uploaded our data sets either via a file, an Excel file upload, CSV file upload, or through our various other third-party tools. And today I'll be using this data set. And to have maybe a quick look within it, this data set essentially has captured the meetings that have taken place in a variety of regions, as you can see in this first column. The second column outlines the staff that have been presiding over these meetings, and they have an individual and unique ID assigned. And we can kind of see the gender of these staff members, their age groups, and also the number of community attendees which have attended these meetings, the percentage of women who have been there, the type of meeting it was, and whether or not it was covered in the media. So that is the one I'm working with now. So now that I've uploaded it onto the platform, I'm now going to head over to the indicator section where I've already set up my indicators ready to be reported on. So to do that, we'll head over to the navigation panel and we'll look for the indicator section, the third section here. So if I click on it, I'll be brought to my indicator list. And I'll be adding data to 4 of these indicators. So I'm going to start off with percentage of workshop attendees who are women. So to do that, I'm going to go over to my shortcut. So as I said, look toward the right-hand side and select collected data. Once there, we're going to look for the Add New Collected Data button, highlighted in green here. Now below, we'll have an option to enter manually, but in this case, we want to pull from our data set that we've uploaded. And if we scroll down, what we're going to do is we're going to add the collection date. So I'll say it was last month that I collected it. I'll classify it as my June count, and I'll select my site. Let's say I did this in Berlin. Now under the evidence tab, as I said, this is where you're going to be selecting your data table, selecting the column, and your calculation formula. So I'll select my data table. So this will be the meeting log. I'll select my column. Now, as you saw, I had a column here dedicated to counting the percentage of women who attended. So I'll select percentage women. And for the calculation formula, I'll select average. And here we go. I have my results generated right here. And I can go down and select save. Once I've done that, you'll see that the actuals now have updated within my actuals versus targets. I can also assign a status if I like, just to let my team know how the progress of this indicator is going. So I've done that. So I'm going to head back toward the indicator section, and I'm now going to look at the next indicator, which is percentage of meetings with media coverage. So once more, I'll select collected data. Add new collected data, pull from data table. I'll just simply add a time here. I'll avoid adding an identifier in site for time purposes. I'm going to select my data table just like before. Now under data column, because I'm going to be looking for the percentage of meetings with media coverage, I'm going to be looking for the media coverage column. So I'll look down. I found it here. And now for the calculation formula, as I mentioned, it's in this instance that I'll actually be using the ratio calculation. So if I select that here, it will ask whether you want to use this as a specific value or a range value, whether or not you have a specific value, such as, text value. You can use this one, which we'll be using now. You can also use a range value if you're using numbers. So since I used kind of yes and no answers to specify whether or not media coverage was attending these events, I will use a specific value, and I'm going to select the yes value. So in all of these meetings, around 34% were attending them. So once I've done that, I'll select Save. And now in our next indicator, we're going to be adding a disaggregation. So this is going to count the number of people who attended meetings. So we're going to head over now once more to the collected data section, add new collected data, pull from data table. We'll add our date collected, our data table that we had before. And here, as we're going to be counting the number of people who attended meetings, we're going to be selecting number of community attendees. And then for the formula, since it's numbers and it's the numbers that have attended these meetings, we'll select sum. And there we'll have it. We have around 6,229 attendees. Now, if I wanted to break this down to see, well, how many attended in each region that these meetings were taking place, what I can do is I can look down and add a disaggregation, because this will give me the breakdown of these numbers across different regions. So I'll select Add Disaggregation Data, so that's toward the bottom. I have all of this information in one column because I have a specific column dedicated to region, so I'll leave it there. I'll use this dropdown to select the disaggregation type. So I want to divide by region, so I'll select that. And in the corresponding dropdown, this is within the data set, I'll select a region. And as you can see, the system has already guessed that the disaggregation that I've set up on the system corresponds with that on the data set. So it has automatically calculated these results, leaving me with only one next step to do, and that's just to save. And it's updated here. I might point out as well that, immediately you'll have a log of the data you've just inputted. You can see the collected value, whether or not disaggregated data has been added, when this date range ended. You have the evidence here that can be used now by an evaluator that has that can be checked then within your data sets, and also can be viewed here using this preview feature. And you can see who it's been added by and when. And then on top of that, if you wanted to have an overview of this disaggregation, you can head over to the results summary and view the disaggregated results here. And so finally, we're going to look at the last indicator. And in this indicator, number of lectures, we're going to use conditions to get some results. So I'm going to, once more, add new collected data. I'm going to pull from my data set, add my date collected. I'm going to select my data table. Now for the data column, as I'm going to be looking at the number of lectures, in this instance, let's think of them as staff members. So for the data column, I'm going to select staff ID. So this is the second option that we see here because each of them had been given a unique ID. And for the calculation formula, I'll select row count. Now we're going to be given the initial result of 134, but as it happens, the staff that were proceeding over these meetings had actually proceeded over a few. And in order to prevent this double counting from happening, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select unique values only. I'll confirm that this will change the results. And now we actually get an accurate view of how many individual staff members there were. So we have this overall number as how many staff there were, but let's say I want to specify how many women were included among these staff. So in that instance, I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to select Add Condition. And as I explained before, you'll see these three different cells that appear. The first of which is the condition column. And this is the column that you want to pull from, or apply condition to rather. So in this instance, we want to see the number of females. So we'll select gender. For the operator, we're going to select the operator to be value equal to. And then as the condition value, we're going to use one of these three options. And this is one of the pre-fill features, which is really useful instead of having to type it out. I'm going to select female. Now you'll see that the above result from 31 has now pared down to 17. So this is specifically the number of females. Now let's say I want to add another condition. And in this instance, I want to specify even further this result. Let's say I wanted to know the number of women under the age of 35, let's say. So we'll go to the condition column. We'll select age. The operator in this instance will be value less than or equal to. And let's say in this example, the closest was 34. And we'll see that under the age of 34 and under rather, this was the number of females that were the staff members. Now, instead of maybe and, let's say we wanted to see the number of female lecturers as well as non-binary, we can use the logical operator or in this instance. For the condition column, we'll select gender. For the operator, we'll select value equal to, and we'll select the condition value non-binary. So as you can see, once more, the results changes up here from 17 to 18. Now, to use the not feature to show you all of them, let's say we want to see the number of females and non-binary staff members who were over the age of 36. So once more, let's go for the condition column, who are not over the age of 36. Let's select the operator to be value greater than or equal to 36. And we'll see that our results now are 7. So once you've gotten the desired result and you've filtered it to the results that you need, you can select Save. And voila. These are a few examples of how you can pull from your data sets and how you can apply different calculation formulas, conditions, and disaggregations. I'm going to head back now to our main broadcast. And I'll say, if you want to have a refresher on what we've covered today, you can feel free either to rewatch what you've seen today, or you can head over to the knowledge base. And there you can look at our add collected data to your indicators article and have a walkthrough again of what I've covered. And so now that we've finished, this is the time that you can ask your questions if you had them. So what you can do now is you can head over to menti.com and use the code 72294519. So that's 72294519. I'll have the questions page open here if anyone has any, but you can also alternatively email us at support@toladata.com if you're not watching this live, so you can feel free to contact us through those means. If you'd also like to use our guide feature, you can use that as well. That's an in-app guide feature that walks you through all of the different steps. You can use that as well to help you navigate throughout the platform. You can contact us also via our live chat. So yes, if you have any questions, do let me know. I'm keeping an eye out there for them. I think it has been pretty straightforward for the moment, and you might find that that was a lot to take in. But one tip I might actually add, one Tola tip that I have, is if this is quite a lot of new information for you and you're finding it a lot to remember, or maybe even you found it easy to understand how this works, how to pull data from a data set, but maybe you think your fellow colleagues might find it difficult, what I'd highly recommend is that you write down the formula of the to pull data from a data set. So this would kind of look like the data set you need to pull from. You'd put in the data set that you're pulling from. You'd put the column, the calculation formula, the aggregations you need to use, the conditions you need to use, and you'd input that in the notes section and save it so that anyone who is inputting data doesn't need to ask you how to do it or get you to repeat or watch this training video. What they can do is they can simply head over to the indicator details and have a look at how that data was pulled. And also maybe even for further transparency, that can be added to the collected item itself so that people can keep track on how the data was collected. So that would be a major Tola tip I'd have to even help you further with pulling that data. So I think for the moment, there hasn't been any further questions, but as I said, please feel free to get in touch via our email or to contact us via our live chat if you're on the platform. But it was a pleasure showing you around these different tools today. We look forward to seeing you at a future feature focus, and I wish you a lovely day and see you again soon. Bye bye now.